Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. This is a reading for Taurus rising, or if you have significant Taurus placements and are needing a neutral energy to harmonize masculine and feminine energies, then this reading is for you. So Taurus, I've pulled your cards already. Your reading is really wonderful. It feels really good. And we're going to start off here with the context of the reading. So you have here home earth and endurance rock. So this is your energy for sure, Taurus, with the home earth. Really sort of being grounded. With the endurance rock, I feel like it's something that you've been working towards for a while, right? Like perhaps just working on being grounded. With all of this sort of like your energy today for this reading feels very, very grounded and very feminine. So I feel like you've been doing a lot of work with your feminine energies, and you've reached a point where it's kind of like you've reached like the peak of it is kind of how it's feeling, right? Like the peak or the completion. I feel like you've been doing a lot of healing work as well with this, because the tarot cards that are coming out here, you have here the King of Pentacles, which I'm seeing as being another person's energy from the past. I feel like there was like, if it wasn't recent, this is just the context of the reading, so it doesn't have to be recent, but I feel like what the energy is wanting to focus on is perhaps a past relationship that ended, because the Knight of Inspiration, I feel like, is you being sort of independent with the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords. So it could have been a difficult ending in some way, but I feel like you've done a significant amount of healing with that with the Star. And I see this star as sort of like connecting with hope again, is kind of how I'm seeing this. So I feel like because you're coming out here with the, like this I see is very much like a Queen of Pentacles energy. It's like this energy, whatever this King of Pentacles energy is, doesn't have to be a relationship, but it's leaning towards that in the reading today. So it could be like, I feel like it's talking about like you've reached a point where you've done a significant amount of healing and something new is coming in for you, is how this is feeling. So with the tarot, these ones here, just going to go through quickly. So the Empress obviously is you. With the Page of Pentacles, I feel like this is some sort of like new, like a gift or some sort of like blessing or something like that is coming in because you're in this very feminine receptive state. And with Three of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups, which is really interesting. So it could be some sort of like offer to collaborate on something. It could be something related to work or your work specifically. But it feels very positive and like something that you've perhaps unintentionally manifested is kind of how it's feeling. Like it's not something that you would have necessarily directly sort of work towards, but because you're just in a very receptive, energetic state, it's coming in, and it's something that the universe is sort of like gifting you for all of the, I want to say like healing work that you've done, right? Like you've been very open is kind of how this is feeling, despite perhaps a past relationship that may have ended badly, for example. And then you have here the High Priestess, the Six of Pentacles, and the World, right? Like the High Priestess being you. Again, more of that sort of feminine intuition energy. The Six of Pentacles is being sort of a reciprocal give and take, but because there's so much focus on Pentacles, it's something perhaps related to work, but it could also just be in terms of your material or physical environment in some way, however that like resonates for you. And it's like because you've reached a significant end of the cycle, but you have here the Nine of Swords, which actually came out twice. You also have the Nine of Wands that came out twice. And so I feel like there's this energy here of worry or anxiety, which we will talk about. And I feel like what this is, so I'm going to go through these. I'm using the Fairy Oracle, which I haven't used in like a public reading in a really long time, but this It'll Be the Retriever is really important because I feel like it's bringing up this old relationship, past relationship, because there's something about with the fairy who's kissed by the pixies, something about like reciprocity that I feel like you're that's causing anxiety, right? With the Six of Pentacles, it's something like perhaps this past relationship, because it came out with the Ten of Swords, where there was a significant lesson for you to learn in that relationship, in whatever that relationship was. And I feel like because you've done a lot of healing work, you are learning some aspect of that. And with the Ilby the Retriever, this one talks to me about like something of yours that you've perhaps lost. And I feel like it had to do with that relationship, meaning like perhaps in that relationship, there was a dynamic where you had perhaps given too much to the other individual and they did not return that reciprocity to you, is kind of how this is feeling with this card, the fairy who's kissed by the pixies, where it was like my ears ringing. You gave a lot to the other person, but they didn't give the same amount, or like it wasn't an equal energy exchange. And with the Titan of the Titan Sylph here, okay, is there the? Yeah, Titan the Sylph, it talks about like having your having your momentum almost like stopped in order for you to see something to do with reciprocity, because this fairy who's kissed by the pixies is a very sort of reciprocal energy where all the love that you give is given and returned to you. And I think that that's where the healing is coming in. And with the Nine of Swords is that this might be coming up because this is sort of an anxiety worry where there may be sort of individuals, I want to say, I feel like there's multiple, could be like a collective or a group where they're wanting to sort of give love to you or give support in some way, or just like you being the Empress. It's like they're wanting to give to you, whatever that means, love or gifts, perhaps something like that. But because it's not an energy that you experienced in your last relationship, it's causing anxiety because it's coming from a place of like, why is this happening, right? Like it could be just like a self-doubt energy when it's like you're the Empress, you are like really sort of strong in your feminine energies, is basically just how I'm going to put it. So anyways, that's the context of the reading. I feel like that has within it all of the messages of the reading, but we're going to go through sort of your current energy just in a bit more detail. So the first one out, you have the Geo the Slow, which I really love for a Taurus reading, because this is how this is sort of like Taurus at their best, is kind of how I'm saying it, where it's like Taurus energy is very, how I interpret it anyway, is like you're content to just sort of wait and see what the best options are, is kind of how I'm reading this. Where it's kind of like there may have been sort of a chaotic energy, or like I sometimes see this as being like shaking a snow globe, where there's a lot of like chaos, a lot of movement, and then just waiting until all the snow settles, and then you can see the clear path forward. So I feel like that's the energy that you're in, Taurus, where it's like you've been really patient, perhaps with yourself or your circumstances, and because of that, with the next card out being the Fairy Guide, it's kind of like you've put yourself in a very sort of blank space energy, which is really, really lovely. And that's just sort of emphasized with these cards. The Singer of Connection and She of the Kurak, this is the Divine Feminine sort of Empress energy, where it's just kind of like receiving, nurturing. It's very sort of abundant as well. And I feel like that because you're in this state, there's something, I feel like there's like a new connection or something coming in. Well, the Singer of Connection is multiple things, because I feel like it's talking about like healing connections from the past, because this card specifically talks about sort of like the idea of you become truly invulnerable when you are the most vulnerable with sort of like your hurts and pains and all of that. And that's when like true connection happens. There's something about like healing some aspect of what you receive from others is kind of how this is feeling. Healing some aspect of what you receive, or it could be healing the feminine energies within yourself as well. And because of that, there's this card here, which fell on the floor on sec. The Arval Parrot, which I always see as like communication, right? There's some sort of communication or message or understanding. Sometimes when I experience this card, it, like the last time there was a significant moment with this card is that I was like driving and I had like this idea, right? It just popped into my head, and at the same time like a pebble hit the dash, like the windshield, as I was driving, almost to like confirm that idea was something that I should pursue and go towards. So it could be something like that, where you're receiving sort of communication from the universe or from spirit or whatever, that you're having some sort of idea. I want to say it's something like an idea, a direction forward, some sort of like creative venture. It doesn't have to be related to that, but it feels something like related to work or like pentacles, right? So I feel like you're receiving some sort of idea or gift or blessing, especially with the fairy godmother, some sort of magical experience, because it feels very much like a guide. It doesn't necessarily feel like some other person who, I mean, it could be that some like spirit's working through somebody in your environment to like give you an idea or something like that to move forward. Because with the fairy godmother, it's like you've learned a significant lesson, and I want to say that lesson has to do with reciprocity in some way. Okay, and then with the elemental cards here, you have the magic card, the alchemy magic, which I love so much because it talks about receiving something, like receiving magic, receiving some sort of like gift or idea or like really positive, lovely energy. And it's coming out with the two of cups, which I love so much because it feels very much like a spirit guide or something like that. Like some sort of like spiritual mystical experience where you're receiving inspiration or an idea or a download. It's being gifted to you. But with the Two of Cups, which I love so much, it's feeling like very much like a co-creation with the universe or with a specific guide or something like that. It doesn't necessarily feel like there's another person, but I feel like there may be something like that that's ahead. It's just like whatever this idea is, it's not coming from somebody else. It's coming from like spirit, source, universe, whatever label you want to put on that, which is really lovely. And what I feel like what that's going to allow you to do, whatever this like new inspiration or creative, like could be like a creative project, but doesn't have to be. You have here Expansion North and Bravery Oceans, which I really love because Taurus, I feel like the energy that you are in now is extremely sort of feminine in terms of like receptivity, right? Like just being open to ideas, like perhaps focusing on like meditation or something like that, or just resting or just being patient or something like that. It's a very sort of like energy of non-action, which is very positive, because I feel like that's something that you needed to learn or like to embody more of. But now it's like with this sort of gift that you're receiving, it's like it's going to prompt you into taking action of some sort. And with this sort of Bravery Oceans, it could feel a little bit shaky, right? It's just kind of like that feeling where if you've been like sitting for a long time and then you stand up and all of the blood sort of like rushes through your body. And so like there's a little bit of shakiness or like having to like stretch out your muscles or something like that in taking whatever action this is, which is emphasized with these cards. So you have the Two of Wands, which is all of this sort of planning, waiting, daydreaming energy. And then the Wheel of Fortune, right? Like some sort, like the Wheel of Fortune has been coming up so much in, I think, the last three or four readings, something like that. So there's a very significant sort of timing event that may have been significant. It could have to do with like astrology or like the movement of the planets, that kind of thing. There's something like very significant about the divine timing about this moment that's allowing you to take movement forward, right? I always see this as sort of like an upward current kind of energy. And then you have here the Nine of Cups and the Nine of Swords, which is so interesting because just looking at how different these energies are, right? And to support that, we also have here the Judgment and the Page of Wands, which I love because if you just look at all this like blue and yellow energy, so of course the Nine of Swords, which we already had out, was talking about anxiety of some sort, worry, fear. It could be like, I feel like there's just this energy of like, I don't even want to like put any words to that because I feel like it will be specific to you, and I feel like it's like it's very clear the difference between these two energies, what they are for you. The Nine of Cups is all of this sort of emotional fulfillment, but because it's always it's a cups energy, but there's always sort of this tie to sort of like material or like physical. There's like there's pentacles involved in this somehow, so it could be like an emotional fulfillment that comes from work. It could be something like that, or just like your ability to move through this physical environment with confidence. It could be something like that. And I want to talk about these two cards as being sort of like how to shift this Nine of Swords energy, because the Nine of Swords is very closed off, right? So it's the opposite energy of what you are in now, which is very open. It's very receiving. With the Nine of Swords, though, it's kind of like shutting you down, or shutting, like being bogged down by turbulent thoughts. I associate this with just anxiety and fear. And so, and I know this is not like it's so much easier to say this with the Judgment card of just to like let go and surrender, but that does take practice. It's like catching yourself, whenever you catch yourself in this sort of Nine of Swords energy where it's like you're worried about something, you're worried about the course that you're on. It's kind of like with the Bravery Oceans, it could be something like somebody who's like learning to skate for the first time, right? Like if you've ever seen somebody learning how to skate, they look down at their feet a lot, right? With this Bravery Oceans card, they look down. They're looking down, which is all of this sort of Nine of Swords. And so it may be sort of easier if you look up, right? Look ahead is how I often see this Judgment card, is like surrendering. For me, just means like accepting where you are now and knowing that in the future, like up ahead, that energy will become more clear, is kind of how I'm seeing this. And with the Page of Wands, I always see this, I love when these two cards come out together because the position's so much different. It's much more expansive, like leading with like your chest, leading with your heart. And it's much more sort of playful and like it talks about exploration, right? Just trying to explore whatever this new energy is. And it does have to do with creativity or just like happiness. It's a very sort of like innocent, childlike joy compared to the Nine of Swords, which is a very sort of like having a lot of worries, having a lot of doubts perhaps, or just like, you know, all of that. I feel like you will understand what that is. And then what you have here next is the Eight of Wands, the Six of Wands, and the Hanged Man. So we'll talk about these two first. Is that whatever this thing is, I feel like perhaps just the beginning stages of going towards it will be a bit may have a little bit of shakiness or like doubt or worry, but as soon as you sort of get past that, it's going to move really quickly and will bring about a lot of success with these two cards coming out. And perhaps that might be an aspect of the Nine of Swords, because with this Six of Wands, it was really sort of highlighting to me like being in front of a crowd of some sort. And with all of that sort of like reciprocity energy, it could be something like being recognized for something, right? Like being in front of a crowd, if it's something that you're not like used to, like something like public speaking or something like that, that might be kind of like, I don't know, it just feels like you're being recognized in some way. And you have here the connection biome. So a lot of connection, right? You had the Singer of Connection and now this connection biome. And this talks to me about like your community, especially because it's coming out with companionship animals as well. That there's like, I feel like there's a lot of perhaps new connections, right? Like it kind of feels like you're stepping into like a new arena, or perhaps you're just like going out and meeting new people, right? Like it could be that you're like, after you've healed from a relationship, I want to say, healing from a relationship and then almost like going out into the field again, like something like that. So you could be meeting a lot of new people is kind of how this is feeling with the companionship and the biome, right? You could be meeting a lot of new people, or like just becoming a part of a new community is kind of how this is feeling as well. And then you have here the Hanged Man, which I want to put together with the Star card, because I feel like with the Star card, it's talking about connecting to hope. But what's interesting about this one is it always feels like at a distance, right? It kind of feels like something that's a dream and not quite attainable is kind of how I see this. But with the Hanged Man, I often see this card as like kind of like in a video game where there's like an unconventional way of getting the thing that you want, right? Like the new clue or the new information or whatever it is that allows you to go the next level. And I feel like there's something here about perhaps just getting a new perspective on this, where you're flipping it on its head, where it's not like something that's unattainable or something that's at a distance. It's actually very easy to get. You just have to approach it in a different way is kind of how I'm seeing this. So that might be like a key aspect in terms of dealing with the anxiety aspect of like, instead of like focusing or looking down or looking, because this is always sort of like at a distance, right? I feel like it's not at a distance. It's not something that's like far off or anything like that. It's something that is very much attainable within your energy right now. And I feel like there's some aspect here with the Ilby the Retriever of it's something that you thought was lost or something that you became detached from in some way, but now it's sort of being returned to you. Or like you're gaining a new insight on how to bring this energy or bring yourself closer to whatever this like hope, dream energy is. Okay, and then what's on the other, like I pulled other tarot cards, and what's interesting here is that you have 3 of the Kings that came out. So hold on, let me just pick them up. So you have here the King of Wands, the King of Cups, and the King of Swords, which came out. And remember, we started off with the King of Pentacles as being like the old relationship or an old energy dynamic or something like that that came to an end. And so this could be read in a couple different ways. It could be something like you're going out and meeting a whole bunch of new people, right? New potential relationships, something like that. And I feel like for you, Taurus, like you're going to have a lot of options is kind of how this is feeling. It's how I'm reading this, where you'll have a lot of options, and that because you also have here the Two of Swords, like having to make a decision, or like, it doesn't have to be that. It could also be just like this could also be something like connecting with, like if it's not like you're going out and meeting people, it could be something like connecting with the masculine energies within yourself. Because, as I said, you're very much right now in this sort of like peak Empress kind of like feminine energy dynamic, and then sort of reconnecting with these aspects of your own individual energy, right? So the King of Wands talks about action, and that card came out with the Nine of Wands, which you also have twice in your reading. So the Nine of Wands and the King of Wands, there may be some sort of like frustration that you're having to work through in terms of taking action. So it could be playing out with like another person, right? There could be like some sort of King of Wands person who's showing you some aspect of the Nine of Wands within yourself, which is like the wounded warrior. So it could have to be, it could do with something with like believing the worst in people is kind of what I just heard there. Believing the worst in people, perhaps. But I feel like you have here like Temperance, which is talking about sort of, I always see this as like cooling, very fiery energy, right? Like any sort of fiery energy. So it could be anger, it could be passion, it could be creativity, but it's more of like a patience, a waiting, like balancing sort of a really fast action-taking energy with something that's more tempered and calm and cool, right? So there could be that energy that's coming towards you. The King of Cups came out with the Sun. So this is just talking to me about emotional fulfillment. There could be a new relationship that has a very sort of like happiness and emotional resonance that's coming through as well. And then the King of Swords came out with the Two of Swords and the Strength card. So there could be something about like your ability to make decisions is kind of how this is feeling, with clarity and like strategy, planning, all of that. It could be something like reconnecting with the King of Swords, masculine energy within yourself that allows you to sort of make clear decisions. And with the Strength card, which I love because it's also been coming out quite a lot, is that it requires sort of like patience. It requires sort of like a dedication to whatever the thing is that you're trying to grow or nurture, and to sort of calm or soothe that sort of anxiety, perhaps like fear response that may come up when you're trying to do something new or move in a new direction or whatever it is. But it's overall really good. It's like your energy is really lovely. It's just that there's one kind of like headache card that is coming through here, which is just like having to deal with anxiety or worry about what the situation is. But ultimately, that's not like the only thing that you can do about that is sort of surrender that to your guides, to the universe, and knowing that in the future, like this energy is temporary, right? It should be temporary. It will pass in the future once everything becomes more clear. Like you'll see why it was that this step that you're taking was necessary. It was divinely guided, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to leave the message there. I'm going to move to the extended. We're going to talk about what else is there that you need to know about this situation. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the description box below. You'll also find information for personal readings if you want one of those. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.